Hello, Malden. Welcome to Dazzle. I'm your host, Priya, welcoming you to our talk show. Today we have with us Mr. Shahriar Kabir. He is the executive president for the Forum of Secular Bangladesh and Trial of War Criminals of 1971. Mr. Kabir is also the general secretary of the South Asian People's Union Against Fundamentalism and Communalism. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Shahriar Kabir. He is a writer, journalist, and filmmaker. So far, Mr. Kabir is visiting U.S., and he has toured Washington, D.C., North Carolina, New York City, and yesterday he was at Harvard University giving a talk on the war trials of Bangladesh. At this time, I'd also like to introduce to you Mr. AKM Mahfuzur Rahman. He is the president for the International Forum of Secular Bangladesh and Trial of War Criminals of 1971, New England chapter. At this point, Mr. Rahman will proceed with our show.
Welcome, Shahriar Kabir. Welcome to Massachusetts.
Thank you.
On behalf of the International Forum for Secular Bangladesh and the Trials of the War Criminals of 1971, I welcome you to the show. We have a very distinguished guest, Shahriar Kabir from Bangladesh. We'll hear from him in a few seconds. Many of you know that in 1971, Bangladesh became an independent country after a 9-month-long war of independence. It's really interesting that, we talked about this genocide in 1971 committed by those political parties and their members. But even after Bangladesh became independent, even after Bangladesh wrote a very secular, in my opinion, one of the most secular constitution in the world, it does allow for a lot of freedom of speech, a lot of freedom, at the same time secularism. But after 1971, after the Sheikh Mujib government was thrown out by a group of military people, we saw the country, in my opinion, going backwards, which means that, okay, we fought this long struggle for independence. We became independent. We wrote apparently one of the best constitution as far as secularism is concerned. But after 71, the country is going backward. And what we have observed from news media, from newspaper, TV clippings, clips, and so on and so forth, that these same political parties have started some kind of a reign of terror in Bangladesh. They have coordinated attacks throughout the Bangladesh. They have trying to infiltrate among the madrasas, which is the religious schools, among young women. We are seeing more and more converting towards this extremist view. We here at the international community, with the help from many of you, we're trying to create awareness in the US and in other countries. What can be done in Bangladesh so that our younger generation or kids who are growing up don't subscribe to this kind of extremism?
Well, you see, this Wahhabism in Bangladesh, this is nothing to do with the mainstream politics or the culture. It doesn't match with the Bangladeshi tradition of secular humanism. We are having this society and this tradition for several hundred and thousand years. The secular values are there, humanist values are there. We had Hinduism in Bangladesh, Buddhism in Bangladesh, Islam, Christianity, all faiths, we have seen throughout the history, the people were living with amity and peace. Mm-hmm. But when Wahhabism was introduced to South Asia, there's more than 200 years, so they tried to impose those, strict principle of Islam on us, on the Muslims of South Asia, but people in general, they have rejected Wahhabism. They never accepted Wahhabism. It is a urban middle class, It's an urban middle class phenomenon, elite phenomena. But people in the rural areas, they are very much secular, they are very much liberal, and they always lived with amity and peace with other faith, other, ethnicity. So that is the tradition of Bangladesh. And these Jamaat-e-Islami, when they were in power, they tried to impose their views on Bangladeshi society, on politics, on the culture, but people never accepted it.
Because
Take the example of previous elections. In 2001, they managed to assume power, Jamaat-e-Islami, with the help of BNP. They were the co-sharer of power from 2001 to 2006. At that time, we have seen unprecedented onslaught, persecution of the religious minorities, secular democratic political parties and activists. free thinkers, intellectuals, professionals. I was thrown into jail for a couple of times, and my friend Muntasir Mamun and many, many intellectuals, they went through this, torture and repressions, and they killed Professor Humayun Azad, many, many professors and lawyers, judges also. But what happened in the election of 2008? The Bangladeshi voters, they have rejected Jamaat-e-Islami and their associates. And last time we have seen the secular democratic forces. They got 3/4 majority in the parliament. So that is Bangladesh, and that is to be understood by the Bangladeshi diaspora in US also. We are the proud citizen of a country that are having this tradition of secular humanism for the last 4,000-5,000 years. So that, values to be cherished, and that to be the values to be, protected.
Absolutely. I'd like to go back to the war crime trials but before I do that, maybe we should just go to our audience. We have some distinguished guests here they live in different parts of Massachusetts, and I'd like to go to them and see if they have any questions for our distinguished guest from Bangladesh, Mr. Shahriar Kabir.